recording. Okay, so let's clear the air about it. You might have issues maybe from our previous two lessons while you're trying to connect your code to the database, or generally. So let's talk about it. You can unmute if you have any question, raise up your hands, we call your name so that others too benefit from whatever question you may have. No question is dumb or no question is too simple or anything. So ask that question. There are some questions you have in mind. You might be shy to ask. Other people too will have it in mind. So you can just break the yoke and ask so that it will serve as benefit to others too. So let's get started. Let's get started. Any questions from anybody, please? All right, Nkem.
Sir.
So Nkem, go ahead, please. After Nkem, we'll take
Mr.
His question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma.
Please, I want to ask, like, the syntax for, I had issues, or should I say I had issues with, you were when you taught us the Swagger and connecting to the database and all. So I was like, if we're having, let's say, like another project to be done, syntax of the language, is it something, let's say somebody has to go and learn it, because it was, I don't know how to say it, but it was like, you just gave us to copy and paste and something. What if we're in a scenario like we have to do it on our own and something like that?
Okay, thank you very much. There's no special syntax of Node.js. It doesn't have any special syntax. It uses TypeScript language and it's running on Node. So NestJS is a Node framework. So what it means is that it cannot exist on its own except that Node already exists. So all you just have to know how to use is JavaScript or TypeScript, and then you learn the NestJS language, what's it called? NestJS inbuilt modules. Yeah, so like in Node.js, there are middlewares. In NestJS, there are also middlewares. In Node.js, they aren't interceptor per se. It is middleware that you use, but NestJS come up with the concept of interceptors. In Node.js, you hardly see decorators, except decorators in TypeScript, if you are using TypeScript for your Node development. So that's why I gave you the NestJS URL, their documentation URL, which is at docs.nestjs.com. You can visit that to understand more about it. Another proof to show that there's nothing really special about NestJS is that when you want to explore the HTTP server integration of NestJS, you see that under the hood, NestJS uses it uses Express and Fastify. So it means if you are coming as from Node background as a Node developer, if you are coming from that background, when you already know how to use Express or Fastify, you will find it easy to use. But the difference is that the implementation of Fastify or Express HTTP server on Node.js is different. Node.js gives you access to the core underlying framework, but NestJS has built on top of it, and then they give you access to what they have built on top of it. So it's just that very simple. Nothing really complicated about it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Nkem. Next question, please.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please, my own is just to help to go through the GitHub again, because when the assignment was given, I tried to do the assignment, but when I have created my own GitHub, but I don't know, is it sharing or I have to link it to a particular address before DevLink will see it? Maybe just a brief.
Can you take that question again, sir?
Sir, okay. The assignment given to us on the questions that we should our GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when I don't know how all those questions, how will DevLink see it? Is it that I'm sharing it or I have to post it to DevLink?
Yeah, you would share the repository link. Just make the repository a public repository and then share the link. I made mention of it on that day that you should share your repository link in the group chat. So once we click on it, we'll just be able to see your code and then see that it's well written properly. I'll send the link of the NestJs documentation on this chat again, on this call chat again for your reference. So any other question regarding the entire class, regarding regarding all the technology stack that you started learning recently? Any question about them? I think Mr. Yeni wanted to talk the other time.
Yes, sir. My question is as regards the assignment given. The assignment says we should create food module. Or we should create it via the command prompt. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. Can you say again? I lost you for a moment.
Okay. I said, as regards the assignment, you said we should create a food module, which I did via the command prompts. I did it, I created it. But one thing I'm not getting right is, I created it on the food module, the controller, I created it with the command prompt. Now trying to get it via my VS Code. I now realize maybe I'm not on the right path. I can't locate it on my VS Code.
Okay. So let's take a look at that. If you are connected to your laptop, you can share your screen. So for the benefit of others too.
Maybe you should attend to another person. Let me while I open that.
All right.
First, yeah.
All right. That works. Stuff works. That works. Yeah.
Let me just. I'm just putting up my system.
All right. That's fine. That's fine.
Yes.
All right. All right. Any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Okay, so I'll take that as a no question, and then we will come to programming 101. So where we explain some basic stuff and then we explain, we'll now move on to understanding what microservices are, and then the applications, how to use them, when to use them, and when not to use them. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No problem,
All
sir.
right. So let me share my screen. Can let me know if when you can see my screen. Uh, all right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me clear the air about a few confusions that we may have. That is regarding the development or software development. We'll touch a bit on software design, and then we'll talk about what are APIs, what are framework, what are library. You understand? And then before then, let me say, for us to be able to increase ourselves in knowledge, we need to be curious about information. When you hear something for the first time, which you don't understand, you can just Google it. What does this mean? You understand? I made mention of microservice the other time. You can Google what are microservice. It's gonna explain. You can Google what are microservice. I like to use Wikipedia a lot. It's going to give me a whole bunch of information. That is what I need. I know I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to understand everything at first glance, but it is worth reading about. You understand? It is worth reading about. A microservice architecture is a variant of software of service-oriented architecture. I don't know what service-oriented architecture is. I will right-click on it. I will open it on a new tab. This is what they call information search and analysis skill for those who attended tech school like NIT. This is information search and analysis skill. So what that thing does is that it gives you a very good knowledge of how to search for information. It says here that microservice architecture, we haven't dived into it. I'm just telling you things. It's an architecture, microservice architecture is a variant of service-oriented architecture. What is service-oriented architecture? It's an architectural style that focuses on discrete service instead of monolithic design. Instead of monolithic design. What is monolithic design? You have to keep starting from that pattern. You have to know the depth at which you are going. Not like you get here now and you right click on what is monolith application, and it will keep going like that to infinity. So to avoid that, you have to go to at least 3 depths or 4 depths. Okay. So you read about all of those things. Have it open, have it pinned somewhere on your system. You keep coming back to them as you walk along the programming or the software development path. You keep making references to all of these pages, and they'll begin to make sense to you. You understand? They will begin to make sense. Now you read about monolith here. Monolith is a system that is integrated into one whole, analogous to a monolith. So from there, you know that, okay, a monolith design is a software design architecture that has, an application is split into about 3 parts. We have the first part, we have the second part. Yes, I need your maximum attention. We have the third part. And it is the third part that actually does connection to, hold on. It is the third part that does connection to the database. So let me browse. Let me look for, okay, let me add this. Okay, so let me look for where there is a DB here. Okay, I can't find it. So let's assume this is database. So let's say this is database. Okay. So normally application is divided into parts. There is a part of the application that the customers are going to interact with. And that part of the application is called what? Please, let's make it interactive. The part of the application that the customers are going to interact with is called what?
User interface, am I right?
User interface is what the customers interact with. But the user interface generally is referred to as the front end.
Okay.
Okay, so the customer part is this. The customer have a way to communicate with the system. Now, when the customer is communicating with the system, there is a validation that is done in the middle. I'm going to give you an example of those things. I'm explaining how you will picture an application. How you will picture an application when you have a requirement, a customer comes to you. We want to develop a system that will allow us to collect student information, their examination information, their current the current term that they are in, their teacher information. We want to save it. We want to make sure that students are only admitted into the school if they are below 18 years of age. Hold on, please. So you want to make sure that students are admitted into the school only if they are below 18 years of age. So, and you want to save those information into the database, and then every now and then you back up the database, you implement security on the database, and then all of those things. So normally applications are split like this. Please, I want you to listen attentively to this class. It's very, very important. So when we have a requirement from a client and the customer saying, we want you to help us to build a school management system. So let's call this a school management system. And the school management system will only we only want to use it to store student information. We also want to use it to store teachers' information, and we want to use it to store examination, subject information, and we want to use it to store examination information, examination. So these are the requirements that you have. So how would you start? Don't let us look at that. We want to explain monoliths now. We know that there is a part of the application that the customer interacts with. The part of that application that customers that users interact with, it interacts with an internal system called the business logic layer. It is in this business logic layer that you do all the validations that the requirement gives you. So let's look at validation. Validation number one for teacher. Let's say validation one for teacher. Go back home one tab and two tabs. So the first validation is that you must be a BSc holder for you to be a teacher. That's validation number one. For you to be a teacher in this our application, you need to have 2 years of teaching experience. That's the second validation. The third validation, for you to be a teacher, you must be a Nigerian. That's the third validation. The fourth validation is that you must have you must have BSc, okay, yeah, that's BSc, just generally BSc. Oh, sorry. So let's say the 1, 2, 3, let's go to the fourth validation. The fourth validation is that you must be a member of the teachers union. A member of the teachers union. That's the fourth validation. Now, subjects has its own validation too. Students, let's talk about student validation. These are business requirements. These are software requirements that was given to you by the owner of the software. So for you to be a student, you must be 18 years. You must be below 18 years. That's validation number 1 as a student. For you to be a student, you must be a Nigerian. That's second validation. Third validation, for you to be a student in the school, you must pass assessments tests. That's the third validation. So let's just take this as a use case example. Let's take this as a use case example. There's a part of the application that customers interact with. And the people that interact with these applications are basically, let's call those people IT. Those that interact with this application. So in the context of this, they are the customers that interact with their application. Or let's call them operators. Operators. They are the ones that are the customers. So you can see that. Can I continue? There's noise coming from someone's background there. Can anyone hear me, please?
Yes, can.
Hello,
Okay.
sir. I don't know whether is the network from here. Your voice is breaking.
Okay, Inkem, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, who else can hear me clearly, or who else hear my voice breaking? Okay. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I'm hearing you now clearly.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So here is what customers will give to you that we refer to as requirements. Let me say clients or customer requirements. Customer requirements. At times they call it business requirements. Whatever it is they call it, it is all requirements. Some people will tell you, give me your business requirements. Some people will tell you, give me your what's it called? Oh, sorry. Give me your business requirements here, or just give me the requirement. These are the requirements. We are approaching you as a software developer, and we are telling you that we want to build a school management system, a very small one. It will cater for students, it will cater for teachers' information, it will store subject information, and it will store examination result information. And then, would you just go to your computer and start developing? You say, no, give me the full requirements. The student information, what information do you want it to store? And what are the validation or business validations that are involved? So let's assume this is the requirement. In the requirement, they said the people that will have access to the system, the people that will interact with the system are called operators. In this place too, you can call it operators UI. So here is the front end. The business logic, all this validation will be done in the business logic. And then all of those information will be stored in the database via the database layer. When you merge everything into one single project like this is called monolith or monolithic architectural design. When everything is inside a single project, it's called monolithic design. But if everything is not inside a single design like this, if everything is separated If everything is separated like this, I'm going to duplicate this. So we have student, teachers, subjects. So here, I'm going to duplicate this. I'll call it student service. Here, I'll call this one teachers service. Teachers service. Here, I'll call this one, I'll call it subject service. I'll call it subject service. And then the last but not the least, I can call that exam service. Examination service. Exam, let me just call it exam service. So this guy will be here. And then this is the next guy. And then this is the next guy here. And then this is the next guy here. Each and every one of these guys have their own database. So I'm going to duplicate this. This guy has his own database. This guy has his own database. This guy has his own database. This is what they call microservice architecture. It's microservice backend architecture. The front end is just a single project. So, but let's look at it. There is micro front end too. There's micro front end where you split everything here into this one too. So if you look at this guy has its own DB. You can see that all of them have their own DB, but this guy rather has a single DB. This one has about 4 databases. This can be deployed on Azure. This can be deployed on AWS. This can be deployed on on Google Cloud. This can be deployed on IBM Cloud. You can see that all of them are deployed on a separate server, but they are working together to accomplish a single task. So this can now connect. This can now connect to all of them. This can now connect to all of them, retrieve data from them, and then send data to them. So let me do it this way. So you see the flow. All of them can now communicate together. So this is called microservice architecture. Micro. This is a microservice. This is a service and it's micro, it is small. This is a service and it's micro, it is small. This is a service and it's micro, it is small service. This is a service and it is micro. That's why they call it microservice. But the one at the top here is not micro. Everything is in a single project. Like this one here, you can write this one in TypeScript. You can write this in Java. You can write this in C#. You can write this in PHP because they will be deployed on a separate server, but they are actually doing the same thing. That's why they call it microservice or distributed service architecture. But in monolith, you can only use one single language to write all of them. It's either you are using JSP or you are using ASP, or you are using PHP, or you are using Ruby on Rails, or you are using Python, or you are using, it's a single language, and all of them will be deployed on a single server. You can't deploy them on a separate server. So all this guy now represent a microservice, and all these validations will be done in each service. So the validation for students will be done in students service. Validation for subjects will be done in subject service. Now, here is the planning. You are just planning to design a system or to develop a system. I can see that earlier, some of you have issues that relate to what APIs are, what is a library, what is a framework, what are classes, what are classes, what are methods, and etc. like that. What are functions? What are functions? The same thing. What are functions? What are subroutine? Subroutine. You understand? All of these things are similar, but they are not the same. Let's break it down. APIs are called application programming interface. When you develop this student service, you can expose this service. You can expose this service. I will make it pass through this guy. You can see that I make it pass through. I didn't put it under, or I didn't put it behind the DB. I will make it pass through. So let's let it pass through. You can expose this guy as an API. You can expose this guy as an API. It's called application programming interface. Application. This is an application. You see, in computer science or in programming. Hold on, let me take a sip of water. My throat is running dry. Okay. You see, in computer science or in programming, there are a lot of English that are used to qualify the same thing. Let's rewind back. Let's go back a little bit. There was a time when we were talking about SQL Server. In SQL, a table is also referred to as relations. A column is also referred to as attributes or a domain. Rows are referred to as records or tuples. Now, how does all of these things sound? When I see them, I just see it as tautology or repetition. They all mean the same thing. A table is also referred to as relation. In relational database management system, they call it relation, table or entity, sorry. Or entity, it's not relation, entity. It also refers to as an entity. In plain English, an entity is just a noun. In plain English, an entity is just a noun. I remember growing up then when one of my uncle, when he's very angry and he wants to insult you, he will tell you you are a useless entity. That time I would cry. I really did not know what an entity is, but I'm like, that insult was too much. It's nothing. It's referring to me as an entity. An entity is a noun. A noun is the name of any person, animal, place, or thing. Why is it being referred to as a table? It is being referred to as a table because, let me go to my local host. Let me open PHP, my admin. Let me check my XAMPP is running correctly. I believe you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I open PHP, my admin. Let me open a table. Let me just open any table. Let me open this table. Let me open this database rather. I'll select this database and I open this table or this entity. Let me open it. Oh, there's nothing in there. Oh, let me try this. There's nothing in here, so let me try information schema. Yeah. Okay, so let me say this. Let me find account.
Are you currently in your database now?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, but are you in your database now?
Yeah, this is a data. This is my database now. This is my SQL database from PHP my admin. I can as well use.
Okay.
Oh, just hold on. Can you see my SQL workbench?
Yes, yes.
You can see my SQL workbench.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So let me just choose one here. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
All right. Let me open another one. I'm looking for the one that has a lot of records. Okay. So here is a select all statement from a table called PMA recent. From a table called PMA recent. If you look at it, they call it a table. They call it a table because it looks like a table. Let me open Microsoft Word. Can you see my Microsoft Word?
We can still see the database.
Okay, wait. Can you see Microsoft Word?
Not yet, sir. Just the database.
What about now?
0.
No.
Okay, let me change my sharing settings. Let me share the entire screen. Can you see Microsoft Word?
Yes.
All right, so let me insert a table. This is a table in Microsoft Word, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's make it interactive. I want you to understand some things. This is a table in Microsoft Word, isn't it? So let's assume I want to use it to store student information. I will say ID, student name, student grade. So let's say ID1, ID2, ID3, ID4, ID5. Student name, Mohammed, Ahmed. Sorry. Okay.
Why came now?
Now the name where they come my mouth be that now.
Why do you come your mind?
Eh?
Why you no come your mind?
Why would you not come my mind?
Why my name no come your mind?
No verse, no verse. Now the name with and she's the only lady we have here, so we have to honor her. You don't get.
Of course.
All right. So let's say this one is Binta, and let's say Hawa. Now, this is student's name, student grade. Let's say this is 100, this is 23, this is 45, this is 67, this is this. This, like this, is a table. In relational database management system, it is referred to as an entity. It is a table. It is an entity. It's the same thing. So what does this entity represent? It represents students. Student is the entity. All these things are the student information. This is a column, also refers to as an attribute, because an attribute is characteristics. Attribute is what? Characteristics. Student name is characteristics. What are the characteristics of living thing in biology? So student's name in this context is characteristics. Student grade is characteristics. It's also referred to as attribute. Attributes are properties. What are the properties of that thing? If I tell you, go to that store, you see a new chair I just bought, write down the properties of that chair. You might write down the weight of the chair. You might write down the height of the chair. You might write down what the chair is made of. You might write down the softness of the chair. You see, those are properties of the chair. Those are attributes of the chair. All these ones are called roles. These are roles. These are rows, R-O-W-S. These are rows. They are also referred to as record. This is a record of a student. If I highlight this row, it signifies the record of a student called Nkem. Our ID is 3. Our student grade is 45. So don't be confused with English, but be curious. Be curious with your learning. Be curious to want to learn. When you're curious to want to learn, you would understand it. When you start to solve a particular problem, don't leave it until you are tired. Don't leave it until you are tired. And when you leave it, don't think about it again. Just go and do something that is opposite of what you are trying, the problem you are trying to solve, and the answers will come to you. So all of these people you see in the tech space that are creating wonderful things, all of them did not just start overnight. They didn't start in one day. They started gradually. They didn't just get to know it, sorry, they didn't get to know it overnight. They didn't just wake up one day and they know it. They started somehow, gradually. This thing I'm explaining to you, God is my witness. It took me more than 5 years, it took me more than 3 years to understand it. When I'm in my corner in the house or in my room, I'll be weeping, I'll be crying. Why is it that I don't understand this, oh God? Why? Why don't I understand it? So I now realize that I get to understand things better when I read it myself. Just explain it to me. I will read it myself. I will interpret it in Yoruba language, or I will interpret it from English, or I will interpret it to Yoruba language, or interpret it to Hausa language, or interpret it to Nupe language, or any language in Nigeria, because I can speak Hausa, I can speak Nupe, I can speak Igbo, I can speak Yoruba, I speak Fulfulde small. I will interpret it into our own mother tongue, mother language for me to understand. The first time I came in contact with SQL Server was in 2009, 2010. I never understood it until 2011. I didn't write my examination because I didn't understand it. My colleagues were already graduating. But my school had this flexibility, NIT back then. You can go to the next class without writing an exam. So I'll just come to school. I'm very short. I'll sit down in front. I don't understand anything until I began to read myself. So when I started reading myself, I didn't see it in any book where they put this thing through to me. This thing I'm showing you here, this guy, that a table is also referred to as a relation or an entity. It's because I've read different parts of, I've read different resources or different books. And then they will be saying you create a table. Another resource will say create an entity. Another resource will say we are going to create a relation. So I'm beginning to think all of them, they have the same result. When these resources say we are creating a table, I will see that they are creating a table. And this other book will be saying we are going to create an entity. I will see they are creating a table. And then this other resource will say we are creating a relation. I can see they are creating a table. So I put it together in my own brain and say, okay, a table is also an entity, it's also a relation. So how am I able to come about this column, attribute, and domain? In relational database management system, it's called column. It's called what? Columns. But it's also referred to as attribute in relational database management system. But in software design, it's referred to as domain. In software design, it's referred to as domain. In software development, it is referred to as properties. I just hope that someday the federal government would allow our schools to, they will allow teachers to teach us in our own mother tongue or in our own modern language. We have a lot of brilliant people. It is English that is making them confused. It's English that confuses them. They just confuse them further every day. They just see themselves not to understand anything simply because it is English. But if you are able to understand the fundamental basis of this English, how they are being put together, you will know that it is very, very easy. Let me take a typical example of something that comes to my mind. Look at this word, framework. Anybody who have in the past managed a construction project or a house construction project, when the house has gotten to the linted point and they say that they want to design the window, the carpenter or the aluminum guy will tell you that they are going to do a framework for the window with aluminum. It means they are going to create something around the window for the window itself to sit on. So let me do a sketch for you to know that everything in this technology space is the most easiest thing you can ever learn. Let me do something. Let's say this is the house. Don't mind the shape of the house. Let's say this is the house. And this is the window.
Duplex.
Duplex. Ashiri Miami. Duplex. So this is the window. The carpenter will tell you that we are going to do a window frame because the blocks that they use to mold this window, it has rough edges. It has rough edge at the top. It has rough edge at the bottom. It's up to the right and to the left. So they are going to do what they call window frame. So this will become the window frame. So it will be easy. Now you see that they will now put the window together here like this. You will now see that they have a window. Let's come back here. What is a framework? This is the frame. This thing is the frame. And what is the work that is there? The NestJs is a framework, is a Node.js framework. NestJs has built everything for you. It's just for you to come and put the window handle. Just come and put the window handle. Put the window glass, clean it, and you are using it. That's framework. My English might not be very correct or accurate, but that is my interpretation of it. Are you with me? So you should be able to dissect and understand all of this English one by one, all of these terminologies one by one. When you are able to dissect them and understand them, you will see that programming itself is like English language. You are learning English language. You are learning a variant of English language to communicate to the computer. Let me take some water. Sorry. It's 4 o'clock already. We need to go on a break. So we'll see you guys in 30 minutes time.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. So I'll pause the recording for now. Zoom recording. All right. So as I was saying, all these terminologies, big terminologies, they all boil down to understanding basics of English. Once you understand them, you will be able to work with anything. So let me open VS Code and just randomly open any application. So this is a Java-based application. Let me come to controllers and I'll come to the business controller. So let's take this for example. Let's take this for example. This is a decorator, we know that, right? I wasn't the one that wrote this code though. So I'm seeing a decorator called REST controller. Automatically, I know that this business controller is this business controller class is a controller. I can see request mapping. I know request is what's coming from the client to the server. So for you to be able to access this business controller, you must use this in your URL. I already know that. That is how to decode anything. That is how to decode anything. This is a post mapping. That means this function is a post function. This is a put mapping. This function is a put function. This is a put mapping is update. This is gets. That's how to interpret all of these things. Nothing special in them. So APIs are what? Application programming interface. This is an application. This is the interface to program the application, to interact with the application. That's why they call it an API. A library. A library is a set of functionalities that can be reused multiple times, or that can be shared with other developers to reuse it. So let me take a typical example for you. Let's say, for instance, I'm creating a library. The library is to sum up two numbers. I'll say this guy will return int, sum two numbers. And this guy will accept two numbers as parameter, int a, x, int y. And I'll say return x plus y. That's all. It's going to return it. I can convert this into a library so that you'll be able to call it from within your own project. So if I make it, if I convert this into a node package now, and I distribute it in the npm registry, you just download the npm package and you use it. You just say business controller dot sum two numbers, you pass the parameter, and it will do for you what this function is meant to do. That's a library. Let me take a typical example of library in normal English. I believe back in secondary school days or primary school days or university days, I think most especially university days, you tell your friends, I'm going to the library. Library is just a collection of articles, collection of writings, collection of documents. So imagine a library in a programming, in the programming space. It's just collection of code that is meant to do a particular thing. When you go to the library, you see they've sectionized the library. This is where you see fictional books. This is where you see science book. This is where you see neurotechnology related book. This is where you see physiological psychology books. This is where you see oncology book. This is where you see pharmaceutical books. So the sectionization of those groups is as a result of grouping those books together is sectionalization of them into shelves. The same thing in programming library. The library for date and time that allow you to manipulate date and time, you will not use it to do REST API calls. The library to connect to the database, you will not use it to perform cryptographic operations. That's a library. I've explained what a framework is. What are classes? Classes are also noun. They are just used to group related things together. If you look at this one now, there is a class called business controller. This business controller is a class. You can see it, everything is inside the class. It means anything you see in here is related to the business. It's related to business, create business, update business merchant, enable business, get all business, get all business by merchant admin, delete business. You can see it's all business related. That's why they call it class. They are used to group related things together. What are methods? What are functions? What are subroutine? Method, functions, they are all verbs, action words. They are all what? Verbs, action words. Like this one, for example, the name of this method is get business by merchant. If I tell you there are 2 rooms in front of us, I want you to go in there and get me 4 oranges. You will leave from point A to point B. That's a verb. You are moving. Functions are verbs. So I think I've cleared the air about that, right? So now there are different types of application. We have GUI application and we have console application. GUI application are applications that have graphical user interface that you can interact with. Example of a GUI application is this Microsoft Word like this. It has GUI, you can interact with it. Example of console-based application are our normal console thing. I'm inside this directory called blue chip. If I want to see everything inside, I will say dir and it will show me everything inside this directory. But I can as well come here and go to my C drive and go to users and then click blue chip. The content of this directory is the same thing as what this command line interface has showed me. So this GUI, this one here is a GUI, while this one here is the CUI. So let me close that. Let me have your question if you have any questions so far. Please ask me a question.
There are different types of applications, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
GUI and what? Console app, am I right?
Say again.
You said we have two different types of applications.
Yes.
GUI and console app.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you mentioned MIS as one of the examples. I'm sorry, MS Word.
As one of the examples of a GUI-based application, yes.
Okay. How about console app?
Just our normal CMD. Just our normal CMD.
Okay.
You remember the last time we installed Git? I said I prefer the Git command. I prefer to use the Git command. So this, if I'm using the Git CLI, that is the command line interface. I'm using a command user interface application. But there's another application that you can use instead of the Git CLI. It's called fork. You can as well use, you can as well use Git desktop. This will do for me the same thing this command line interface will do for me. But the difference is that this is graphical. This is graphical. This is a repository now. This is a repository. Okay. This is a repository origin. These are all the branches in the repository. If you want me to do the same thing from the command line interface, I can do it. Any other question?
None for now. Thank you very much.
Please ask me a question, please. Are we together?
Yes, we are, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So when you have a request to develop an application, how do you break it down? How do you know where to start? It can be very confusing. I've already explained framework. NestJs is an example of a framework. Library. Let me give you some example of library. jQuery is an example of a library. You understand? A framework. NestJs is an example of a framework. NestJs is an example of a framework. You understand? NestJs is an example of a framework. NestJs is an example of a framework. Nux.js is not a framework. Nux.js is a library. All these things are just Nux.js is a library. So you just have to know them when you are reading them. So let me come here. Let me say Next.js. See it here. Next.js. This is nextjs.org. I will click on it. What did it say here?
React framework for the web.
That's all. It's a framework. It has everything you need to develop. You don't have to source for anything externally. It doesn't mean you cannot source for anything externally, but they provide the framework publisher or the owner of the framework has put everything that you need to work inside of it. A React framework for the web. React itself is there. React.js is a library. See, React.js is a library. The library for web and native user interface. So this library, some people came together, they work on it, they added a lot of things to it, and they call it NestJs. So without React, NestJs will not exist. Without Node, NestJs will not exist. All right. Let's move a little bit forward. So let me visit the docs.nestjs.com. This is the NestJs documentation. I expect you guys to go and read it. You can see they mention Angular here. Angular is a framework. It's not a library. Angular is a framework. It's not a library. I expect you guys to have gone through all of these articles, read about what controller does. See this and this and this
not
diagram.
all.
Say again.
Not all. I've actually started it.
Okay. So this is a diagram that explains what a controller is. From English layman term, what is a controller? Anything that handles the orchestration between two or more things. Controller General of the Immigration Service. That is the person that communicates whatever the federal government wants to the immigration officers. And then he communicates whatever the demand of the immigration officers is to the government. That's a controller. That's a controller. So read them, practice them, and then you will see that all of these things are not anything too complicated. All these decorators, like this is a decorator. If you want to know what a decorator is, you come to the menu here, you see some techniques, I think fundamental. It will show you what all those, see, that's custom decorator, to show you what decorators are. Nest is built around language features called decorators. Nest is built around language features called decorator. What is that language feature? What is that language? It's TypeScript. In TypeScript, there are decorators in TypeScript. TypeScript, decorator, decorators. You can see it is actually TypeScript that introduced the idea of decorators. See it here. It is TypeScript that introduced the idea or the concept of decorators. This is a decorator they just created here. So NestJS is just taking it to the next level and using it to create all of those things. You will not see this decorator. Let me find something. You will not see this get decorator in TypeScript directly, but because TypeScript has a feature called decorator, NestJS being a framework that is dependent on TypeScript, they can use it to create whatever it is that they want to create. So if you are learning TypeScript separately, this is how to create a decorator in TypeScript. Am I communicating?
Yes, sir.
I've explained the concept of monoliths and microservices to you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't want
Yes,
to
sir.
go. I don't want to go into too advanced part of microservices.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
When you were explaining monolith, you said for monolith, like they are like for this business logic student service, they are microservices, right?
No, in monolith,
And can be written in monolith. They are microservices.
No,
and
no,
they
no,
can
no.
be written with.
It is in microservice that you have all of them separately, and they can be written in different programming language, even though they are just one single project. Even though they are one single project.
Okay. So, and as they are written with different languages, they are to be stored in different database. Is that it?
They are what?
They are to stored in different database.
They are to use different database. They can use
separate database.
Yeah, they are to use separate database. So that's what I'm saying, that I don't want to go into advanced topics of I don't want to go into advanced topic of microservice. I think I made mistake here. It should be microservice design.
Okay. Thank you.
So in microservice architecture, there are a lot of things that come into play. You can use a single database for all your microservices and separate them by schema. Those are called schema separated microservice. You can as well create separate microservices and then separate them by database. Those are database specific microservice. There are ways in which the microservice communicates with each other. So you can use gRPC for communication between microservices. You can use TCP for communication between microservices. You can use orchestration services like Azure. You can use Kafka. You can use RabbitMQ. You can use Azure Service Broker to communicate between microservices. Those are communication between microservices. You can use a share library to share functionalities between all of these microservices, but there's a downside to that. The downside to that is that the two microservices that you are trying to share library between must be written in the same programming language. But if they are written in a separate programming language, you cannot share library between them. Those are advanced microservice feature. How can you put a gateway between all these microservices for authentication and authorization? How can you do that? So those are advanced microservice explanations. If you want to learn about that microservice, you can come here. You see microservices, overview of microservice. You can see they talk about Redis here. Redis is used to cache on the microservice, on each microservice. There's MQTT for communication, there's NAT, there's RabbitMQ, there's Kafka, there's gRPC. All these are different technologies for communication between different services. Not microservice alone, different services. Microservice is just a concept of service-oriented architecture. It took me time to understand all these things too, but I will not rest until I get it. Inside the car, I'm reading, inside the toilet. Yes, now, and I'm going to the toilet, I will carry my phone. On my phone, the browser tab is more than 48. I'll just be reading.
Just cleared my.
I'll just be reading. I'll just be reading. When I'm sleeping, my subconscious mind will ponder about it. I'll just wake up. I'll say that I understand some of it. So you won't give up. You keep trying. You keep trying. These are different technology. It's just like someone telling you to come and learn all the languages in Nigeria. There are more than 2,000 plus languages in Nigeria. Do you know how confusing that would be? That's what all these technologies are about now, in one brain. So you just have to keep trying it. You have to keep learning. You have to keep practicing. That is the best way to stay ahead in this technology domain that we find ourselves. Else, we just say you dey bus stop, car don't go. You get, so that's it. Please don't relent. Don't relent. Learn. Buy courses online. Empty your pocket for your brain. It's never too late to learn. You are never too old to learn. You are never too old to try something new. The guy who found KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, he was above 60 now. He was above 60 when he found the recipe for KFC chicken. You see, you are never too old to do anything. When you say you are old to do something, and you discover that you have love for a particular, let's say you have love for technology, you discover it at 65 when you're about to retire. What if God has ordained that you are going to spend 140 years of life in good health? So 65 minus 140, have you not spent more years afterwards than the years you have been using in the past? You never can tell. You have to keep trying. You have to keep trying.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. So, yeah, so let me take the NestJs class Molo Molo style again. Back in the university, I have this lecturer. It's Theodore, he's a French guy. When he's trying to teach you, gradually he will tell you, I'll take it Molo Molo. That is small, small. So let me come back to NestJs. So here, we are starting with a project. We are starting a new project, right? Hold on.
No more audio, please. Am I the only one?
Yes, I'm here. Just a minute.
Okay.
All right, so sorry guys. So we are starting a new project. You already have your design. Let us assume this is our project design. This is what we want to do. This is our project design. So I'm going to create a new project. I'll call it school management. School management. So here, what I always do first is for me to open my terminal here. I'll open my terminal here. Oh, don't let me confuse you. Let me open Visual Studio Code here. If you look at this is the location of the file. We are using Visual Studio Code. I will open my Visual Studio terminal. You see that the folder part is the same thing as this folder part here. Here is the folder part. If I copy this guy, if I paste it here, you see that this guy is the same thing as this guy. So that being said, I don't want to use PowerShell terminal. So I want to switch to command terminal. I'll delete the PowerShell terminal. So that being said, because we want to develop a Node.js application, this is fresh, we are starting afresh. Because we want to develop a NestJs application, what is the first thing we need to be sure that we have? We need to be sure that we have Nest install. For you to check if you have NestJs installed, you can run nest info. So while we are waiting for that, I need to also be sure that I have Node installed, okay? I have Node version 18.19.1. I have NPM installed as well. If you have Node, you have NPM installed, but not in all cases. There are situations where you only want one. You don't really want the other one, but it's very rare for you to have situations like that. So I'll go back to check. So I have Nest installed. This to show me that I have Nest installed and it's running. If you do Nest new, it means you want to create a new NestJS project. You want to do what? You want to create a new NestJS project. I will say Nest new, the name of the application. So I'll call the application school management. Let's say school management. I'll press enter. Now the NestJS application framework is asking me what package manager do I want to use? Why is he asking that question? It's simply because NestJS is a Node.js framework. Node.js uses Node Package Manager to manage Node packages. .NET uses Nugget packages to manage packages. Packages are library. Packages are library. Nugget packages in .NET, Node.js packages in Node, or Node packages in Node. You understand? Packages are library. My JavaScript package are JavaScript library. So the package manager in Node.js, the one that is supported by default in Node.js is NPM, Node Package Manager. There's another company that created a package manager like Node, it's called Yarn. And there's also PNPM. So I'm using NPM, I'll press enter. So automatically it will bootstrap the application for me. So what are the things that this thing is doing for me? This thing is doing NPM init, is initializing NPM for me. Because it is initializing NPM for me, how do I know? It's simply because I can see package.json here. It is also initializing TypeScript for me. That's why I can see tsconfig.json. So let me Google something. I'll Google Nest new. I'm trying to see how it works under. It will tell us everything that is executed under. Nest new. So see, the Nest new, it initializes a new Nest project. It initializes a new NestJS project. Prompt for package manager. It will create a folder with the name that you gave here. It will populate the folder with configuration files. It will create a subfolder and source code inside the source and test inside test. It will populate the subfolder with default file for app component and test. I want to see the list of things that they will tell me that that thing does. It doesn't explain it much. But basically, Nest new will do NPM init for you. That is initialize NPM. If you do NPM init, let's take an example. Let me create a new folder here called init test. And then inside this folder, I open my command prompt. And then I cd inside that folder. You can see that the folder is empty from here, right? If you look here, you see that the folder is empty. If I do npm init, I'm initializing node. Inside that folder, it's asking me for the package name. I can say school management 2. Package name. Oh, sorry, name can no longer contain capital letter. Okay. So I can say school management 2. Version, default, description, no description, entry point, index, test command, git repository, keyword, I don't want, author, Ahmed Farouk. I'll show you something now. License, no. Is it okay? Yes. Just type yes. Enter. What did it create for me? A package.json file. If I open this package.json file, you see it. It has the project name, it has the author, it has the license. If I open the same project, if I open the package.json, you'll see that the package.json has, it has the name of the package, it has the version, it has the license, it has the author. You input the author here. That is what Nest new will first do. It will initialize a node package. What is the next thing it will do? It will do TypeScript. What's how to initialize TypeScript? I think it's TSC init. Let me try that. TypeScript. TS init. Let me try this. I can't remember. Initialize TypeScript. How to set up TypeScript projects. That's what I want to see. Okay, so npm install TypeScript. Say we are installing TypeScript. This is it, npx tsc init. Yeah, tsc init npx tsc init. Let me go back to that folder. You see, it said yes. Okay. There's an error. Use npm install TypeScript to first add TypeScript to your project before using npm. Okay, so if I do npm install npm install TypeScript, I'm installing TypeScript. If I look at this guy, I will say yes, it has already added TypeScript to my dependency. Okay, so if I now do npx init, okay, sorry, npx tsc init, you can see it has created a TS config. Hello, sorry guys.
Okay, sir.
So you can see that that command gives me the tsc init gives me type ts config. The npm init gives me package and node module. If you look at the TypeScript project, if you look at the NestJs project, I have tsc, which is TypeScript. I have node module, which is created for me using npm init, and I have package.json and package-log.json. You can see that the remaining file are Nest related, Nest, and that's all. It's just Nest related, and Nest will just create these two things. And that's what it does. That's why they call it a framework. Nest brings npm, it brings TypeScript, it brings Git under one umbrella, and start manipulating the two of them. You understand? It's just like a man having 2 or more wives. If you have like 2, 3, 4 wives, you can, if you know how to control things, you can control. You'll be in charge of this cooking. You'll be in charge of clothes today. You are being a NestJs man. You understand? So that's it. All right. So let's move on. Let me bring this one down. So let's get started. But I want you to be planning it with me. What project are we developing? You can all unmute and let's communicate. This is the project we are developing, right? And it's going to have how many modules? Okay, how many modules? How many people do we have here? Oh yeah, okay, Mr. Rilwan, Mr. Johnson. Let's make it interactive.
We have 4.
We have 4 modules. Thank you very much. Can you mention them?
Students, teachers, subject, and examination.
Student module, teachers module, subject, and examination module. Please, let me close it. All right, thank you very much. Who does not understand that we have 4 modules here? Who does not understand that we have 4 modules here? Please, let's make it interactive. Unmute your mic. Nkem, are you there? Mr. Rilwan? Mr. Johnson, it be like say now only me and you did this call.
No, we do.
Also, sir, since yesterday we have problem of network in Katsina. So my participation will be skeletal, sir. I'm sorry.
The same thing too in Lagos.
Not only Katsina, sir.
I think
it's everywhere
now.
So yes. This is just breaking and coming up.
All right, so we have 4 modules in this project. How do we create modules in NestJs?
Yes, sir.
We have a default. We have this default files that comes with the project. We have the main. Anywhere in any programming language, regardless of the programming language, wherever the programming language is coming from, when you see main, that is the entry point of the project. That is the main entry point of the project. The main is the entry point of the project. We have the app.service. These are just simple boilerplate code that was created for us. At injectable is a decorator. This decorator means something to the NestJs compiler, or to the NestJs compiler. It means that this app service can be injected into another service or another controller or another provider. If I remove this at injectable, you can just instantiate an object. You can just create an object of this class, but we'll leave it at injectable. when you look at our controller, you see that the controller has @controller on top of it. If I remove it as from @controller, NestJs will just see it as a normal class called app_controller. Forget this last word that is here, it's just a name. But for NestJs to know that this is a controller, you leave it as @controller. There is a function endpoint here. You can only reach this function endpoint via get function. Functions, all these get, post, put are all HTTP verbs. So let's come down to that. They are all what?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Get, post, put, option, delete, create, read is get, C is post, R is read, updates, put. All right. So you understand. So let's move on. How do we now create the model? You can say next generate resource.
Generate
What
resource.
resource do we want to generate? Students, then teacher, then subject, then examination. Then generate resource, students. Now, this resource that we want to generate, how would we allow this resource to be communicated with? We want to use REST API. There's also GraphQL, code first or schema first. There's microservice. Remember, I explained microservice, non-HTTP. There's WebSocket, but here we are using Web API. Then, would you want to generate a crude entry? I say yes.
Sir, why should we most prefer REST API?
It all depends on the requirement of your application. In this application, is Web API. I have a lot of projects on my system that is not Web API based. It's just microservice based.
Okay. Okay.
So we have created under this source here. You see, where did I create itself? School management. Oh, I created inside here. What did I call this? Students. Oh, I created it outside. Sorry. See, I created it outside. It's not supposed to be outside of it. So I'm going to delete it. Oh, sorry. So let's go into the school management, CD, school management. So let's recreate that service, that model. Next, generate resource, students. We are using REST API. Yes. So we have generated student model. So let us generate another model. What's the next model? Subject model.
I think teacher.
Let's generate teacher.
Let's generate this.
So examination, right?
Remain examination.
Yes, sir.
Examination. I'll press enter. REST API. Yes. You can see that we have not written any code so far.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's build our projects. npm run start dev.
Run start dev.
You can see that the application is running fine. But we as a developer, if we haven't seen Swagger page, we don't used to know that our application is working properly. So let us stop running the application. Let us do npm install, save, NestJs Swagger. This NestJs Swagger is a node module. For you to be sure, let me fire this. Let me go to my browser and I'll find NestJs Swagger. The first result, you see it, NestJS Swagger. You will see it in the npm repository. This is the repository for all npm package. This is one of the repository for all npm packages. See it here. This is that npm. That node Swagger, that package I just installed. This is it. How to use it? If you want to know how to use it, you have to go to the publisher's website. See it here. This is on how to use it. So let me go to the README file. Now they will show us how to use it. Read more here. Okay. Okay, they didn't explain how to use it in this one here. So let's use it. We've installed it. For you to be sure that what you installed actually installed, come to package.json file, come to dependency, and you see it here, NestJS Swagger. Let's rebuild our application to be sure that nothing is broken. npm run start dev. All right, our project is running properly. So to save time, hold on, let me use my proper. All right, to save our time, let me come back to my repository here. Let me come here. I think I have, let me check here. Let me check the source. I'll check the main. Basically what I need is this. I need this old guy here. Just to save me time. So I will explain everything to you. I'll paste it here. There'll be some complaints. I'll resolve those complaints. This guy here is asking me API prefix / API. Sorry, API prefix and prefix extension. So I'll say /API v1. I'm not using basic auth. Sorry, let me remove this authentication completely. I'm not using basic auth. I can remove this also completely. I need to import the Swagger module. You see that it's from NestJs Swagger. We've only installed one single node package. So my API prefix is API. The extension is v1. Here, I'll say school management system API. Here, I'll say school management service API. You can put anything there. All right. That's all there is to that. So I created a custom app. I use this option with the document. So let me explain. The first thing here is that we are using the Nest factory. Nest factory. You know what nest is, right? Like a bird nest. You can see how organized the nest of a bird is. That is where this framework got its name from, Nest. We are using the Nest factory to create our entry module. Our entry module is the app module, which is this. It's just a decorator. It's just a decorator to show that this is a module, the app module. That's our entry module. Let me go back to the main. We create an instance of the app module, which is the entry module, because if you look at the app module, you'll see the student module, the subject module, the teacher module, and the examination module. So this is the main entry module, and this is the entry module, and this is the project entry point. We now created a document builder. This Swagger document builder is just for us to build an information about our Swagger page. We now use Swagger module. It's also a module. Swagger module is a module within the Swagger package, within the NestJs Swagger package. We use it to create a document. You have to pass the app to it, which is an instance of this guy, which let me call it an instance of this guy. Let's say create an instance. It's an instance of this guy. App is an instance of app module. We pass it. The next parameter is for us to pass a Swagger document option. And this is the Swagger document option. This option, we'll pass it to it. We now use Swagger module to set up the Swagger and then set the title and how to access the Swagger endpoint. We now say, await application.listing. We are telling our application to listing on a particular port. We are telling our application to listen on what? On a particular port. Okay. So here I can now say console.log application is running on let me do this. Let me do backtick. I'll remove this and I'll remove this. Application is running on, I can say app.get URL. Application is running on get URL dot let me take this out of this place. I will say const ports subtype subtype number should be equal to this. Then here I'll say ports. Here so here I'll say application is running on port 3000. You can see application is running on port 3000. Let me go to my browser. Let me say localhost port 3000. It will not open it directly for me. Now, why is it not opening it directly for me? It's simply because I have set up the Swagger module to be accessible only on this link, URL link. So I will paste that URL link here. I will hit enter. And that's all. And that is all, without stress, without wahala. Without stress, without wahala. Who is not with me here?
I'm here.
I want to know those that are not with us. Who is not with us? So you can see how simple it is. Now everything is just together. We don't know which controller is for which. We only know this examination, this teacher. How do we separate it? Let me show you. Let me show you how to separate it. I'll come to examination. I'll come to the examination controller. This is the controller name. I'll add something they call API tag. That API tag, I'll put it on top of it. I'll say examination module. Then I'll save. It has already saved itself. You can see how everything is just straight together. Let me refresh now. You can see examination module has brought itself out. Let's move on to the next one. Student module. Let me come here. I will say API tag, right? I'll paste this guy. I'll call it student module. I'll collapse this. I'll come to subjects, come to the subject controller. I'll say API tag, then paste this guy. I'll call it subject module. I'll collapse this guy, come to teachers, come to the teacher controller. I'll say API at API tag, and then I'll call it teachers module. And then we are done. I'll refresh this and everything will be separate. Can somebody praise the Lord?
Hallelujah.
Yawa. So you can see it now.
Yes.
It's getting sweet as if it is easy. And
It is easy.
My spirit mind is telling me it is not.
It's easy. Don't let your spirit mind deceive you. It's easy.
I say that in a language.
You see this thing, this thing I just showed you, this API tag I just showed you now. I was developing one day, and all my Swagger document display all at once. All these things are not there. This module, and I have about 7 to 8 modules, and I'm like, Michelle, what's happening? I try. Do you know that it take me 2 days?
Really?
I can see the way I remember it as if it's my surname. It's because it has suffered me before now. That's what they call experience.
You learn from your mistakes.
So let us try get students. The action return all students is just describing it. This get students. Let's go to our code. Let's look at the students module. If I come to the student controller, no, if I come to the student service, let me go to the student service. The action return all students. This is what I call get students. So you can see it. It is that simple. It is what? It is that simple. It is this Swagger endpoint you now give your front end, and then they will start implementing things for you. Ask me a question, please.
Sir.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a pending question. And I think I'm getting to it means for every project, You must install Swagger. Is that it?
It's not every project. Some projects require.
Because the other time we installed it. On Saturday we did. And this is another new project now. We also did.
I didn't hear you.
Is it for everything? I said on Saturday, you know, we installed it. Like, this is another new project now. We also installed Swagger. So, like, does it really matter that for every project we must? I think there's some project that requires.
No, it's not. It's not
when it comes to modules.
It's not all project that requires Swagger, but you as a developer, if you don't want to have hypertension early, it's better you have Swagger so you can test your team from the interface like this.
HBP at 35.
Yeah, you test it from the interface, you see that it's working instead of you using Postman. Instead of you using Postman, you now try to remember this URL. So this Swagger is just a graphical interface for you to test your API as a developer. Your life will be very easy. You will not suffer.
So it is one of the important key.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think I got that.
Who get question? Make you ask me. All right, it's 5:33 and we're supposed to run this class up by 6. But still, we are not able to cover everything all in all. But one of the best way to be rock solid in this thing is for you to create something. It's for you to get your hands dirty. It's for you not to be afraid of asking questions. It's for you not to be afraid of getting into programming problem which you don't even know how to resolve. Make Google your friend. ChatGPT is not advisable. I won't lie to you. ChatGPT is not advisable. Yes, now you are learning programming and you are using ChatGPT. Will it explain to you that thing that you want it to do for you?
Yes, no.
That is if you ask it to explain, Abby.
Yes.
Do you even know what you are supposed to ask about?
Within the drag.
So if I tell ChatGPT, if I tell ChatGPT,
shake my head,
if I tell ChatGPT to create a cryptographic algorithm for me in Node.js, we can give it a try. Here we are all here. Open AI. Open AI. Just watch. We have a requirement, and the requirement is that we should make sure that when users are trying to sign in into the application from the front end, users are trying to sign in from the application in the front end, the password should be encrypted from the front end before it gets to the server. When it gets to your NestJs backend code, you should decrypt it. And now say ChatGPT creates a cryptographic so let me call it an encryption code in NestJs. An encryption and decryption code in NestJs. I press enter. Oh, you don't create them, Abby? Are you guys with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it has created it, Abby. Can somebody explain what this code does to me?
Okay, are you there?
Why ChatGPT? You did not tell it to explain it, sir.
You said yes.
Oh, yeah. To write it for you, like it has written it.
Yes, it will definitely explain, but please let us understand.
Oh, yeah.
If you ask me, who will I ask?
You came now, your side I do.
I have a question.
Explain it. What's your question?
You know, when it comes to the academic cycle, they will tell you that something that you are just displaying now. It is the work either some people or somebody somewhere.
Plagiarism.
Plagiarism. Is that
Plagiarism.
also occur in programming, sir?
Rara, that doesn't occur in programming. No, I can take some code from Windows operating system and use it to create my own. The only thing is that when you are doing that, you have to make sure that it is not word for word. You understand? So explain this code to me. Explain it. So that's what I'm saying. You need to understand the fundamental basics. If you don't understand the basics, Baba, person will suffer. I'm telling you. Someone needs to understand. Yes. Ole ti wise. Àwọn ọ̀lẹ ti ń lo fóònù gan nísìn.
Wọ́n ti ń lo iPhone.
Wọ́n ti ń lo iPhone. So you understand? You need to understand the basics. If you don't understand the basics in everything you do, really, there will be problem now. Wallahi, there will be problem, no joke. See, I think this morning I was, where is that screen? Yeah, this is what I was listening to this morning. This is Surah to Kaf. It's just an example. Nkema, I'm sorry. Even if you are a Muslim, and you don't understand how to pronounce all of these things, the fundamental basics, where you know that Dal Kesro D is D, Mim Fatihama is Ma, Mim Fatihalik Ma di Ma, guy, you go suffer. You don't go feel read Quran straight. It applies to everything too. You understand? It applies to everything too. So you not be like my elder cousin who was teaching one of our nephew. I think it's what's the name of that? The boy was in primary school then. I think it's social science. And the guy saw this in his book. Alkaline. The guy said it's alkali. Muhammad. I say Muhammad me kace wannan alkali ne na ce ba alkali ba. How can you call this in alkali? It's not alkali, it's gumbo. How can you say it's alkali? It's because he does.
As guy no Sabina.
No, Muhammad was in University of Abuja then now.
Really?
Wallahi tallahi. Wallahi. Wallahi. How can you say this is alkali? You understand? I said
Maybe he's not a science student.
Either science or technology student, I don't want to know.
Science Abba.
So I said
maybe it depends on how he was taught now.
Okay. If you have been practicing, that's the essence of practicing. I say, Muhammad, one number alkali, but one alkaline. Say, Kariya. I said, Kariya, you are stupid. You understand? So it is the same thing in this technology world that we find ourselves. It's the same thing. It's just like somebody writing proof. You see me, I wrote proof. Somebody writing proof. I think it's FE. And another one like this. You need to know the difference. That you don't want to go and write to the police to write a statement and then your word will be used against you. I don't even know, maybe me, I got it right, Seth. You see what I'm talking about? So that is it. The same thing applies in programming. You need to understand the basics. If you don't get the basics, bros, forget. Person will suffer small. Go back to the basics. Go back to binary. Go and read about it. It mustn't be taught in this class, but go and read about it. When you read about it, if you have any challenge, you get a mentor, get someone. Mr. Abbas is there. You can drop a message in this our communication WhatsApp group. You know, this is what I'm reading. Even if it doesn't relate to what you've been taught, try it out. Try it. Keep trying, and you'll see that you get it. I wish you guys all the best, and thank you so much for listening today. It's been a
Thank
wonderful
Thank you
time.
very